If you're a business owner, what would you say if I told you that the Albanese government wants to force you to pay women for late-term abortions through paid parental leave? It sounds insane, doesn't it? And yet they're rushing it through the parliament this week. It's a national disgrace. No one's talking about it. And that's today on The Dr. Joe Show. Before we talk about what's going on, I really want you guys to subscribe to this channel. You're not going to get this news from anywhere else in the media or just anywhere else in your feed. We do so much research for these shows, and I need you to support the channel through subscribing. It's one free thing you can do to support the work that we're doing. So please subscribe to the channel. So you're not going to hear this from anyone. In fact, all of the media articles about this new bill that the Albanese government is rushing through the parliament this week, they're all positive. No one wants to focus on this one thing, but we're going to talk about it today. So we've already broken on this channel the fact that the Albanese government is paying its own paid parental leave to women who have late-term abortions. We broke that early in the year because we were able to show this letter. We already knew it was happening because I'd been told by whistleblowers in the hospital system that this was a problem, that there were increasingly women who were having social termination. So women that were killing their baby right up until birth, delivering them stillborn. These babies have nothing wrong with them. The mother's life wasn't at risk. And hospital staff were pretty upset about the fact that they were then signing to confirm that the stillbirth had happened, and then these women were accessing the stillbirth parenting payment and paid parental leave. So we already knew it was happening. We got this front page story. But it was through this official confirmation from the Minister's Office and Services Australia that we were able to really confirm this on this channel. And this letter, I got this letter from somebody who watches this show, who'd been writing to politicians for over 20 years. She passed this letter on to me, the response that the government gave. So it says, the eligibility criteria for stillbirth parenting payments do not exclude circumstances where the stillbirth was due to a medical termination, including an intentional abortion, provided the child has been certified by a qualified medical practitioner and having been delivered and the definition of a stillborn child is met. The key thing to note, though, is if you have a stillborn baby, so you had to face the tragedy of your child dying in utero, so not intentional abortion, but just the definition of a stillbirth that you and I would know. Like, we didn't even know that this sickness could exist until we've sort of broken it open. This idea of an intentional stillbirth, I mean, who would do that? But what we've been able to show is that the method for a late-term abortion is to inject the baby's heart with poison, and then the woman delivers that baby stillborn. So they deliver a deliberately stillborn child. Now, under the government's payments, you can actually choose, if you've had a stillbirth, you can choose between the stillbirth parenting payment, which is about $4,200, or you can choose between that and paid parental leave, which is up to $22,000. That's government-funded paid parental leave. They do it at the minimum level of pay. You can get top-ups from your employer. But the government says if you have a stillborn baby, you can get either one of those two. Now, of course, you're going to pick the one with more money if you meet the work test. So, you know, the government has this handy little page deciding between parental leave pay and stillborn baby payment. If your baby was stillborn, your family may get payments. This is really just this table that they show. The only real difference is if you've had a stillborn baby, you've certified that by a doctor, presumably the doctor that delivered the baby stillborn, you can then get paid parental leave. The only difference is the work test. You have to have been working in the preceding 9 months. So we exposed all of this, and then Pauline Hanson, you guys will remember, came to my house. I interviewed her. She was interested in doing something about this, and she asked questions of Katie Gallagher in the Senate. Let's watch.
Why is the Albanese government funding the murder of healthy babies where Australian women can terminate a pregnancy up to the day before birth, allowing women to receive a lump sum payment and access to paid parental leave of up to $22,754?
As it relates to other payments, including PPL, evidence is required, documentation is required before those payments are made. That includes certification from someone attending the birth that the birth was of a stillborn child.
It's like Pauline Hanson isn't asking, like, can you do this? She's asking, like, why? Like, why? How in the world can this be possible that you can deliberately have a late-term abortion and get paid parental leave? Like, the rationale for paid parental leave is that you've got a baby, right? Like I've accessed it 3 times, and it's because you got a baby. Like you having time off work because you're breastfeeding, your body's recovering, you're bonding with this baby, and that's the rationale. It's paid parentally because you're a parent. And Pauline's asking, if you've had an intentional abortion, so you're a parent, but you've deliberately killed your child. So you're a parent of a child you deliberately killed. Why on earth are you able to access government-funded paid parental leave? Katie Gallagher, who's one one of the most pro-abortion members of the Labor government, she stands up and she says, well, yes, you can get these payments, including PPL, and you need a medical practitioner to certify that your baby was born stillborn. So this is just confirmation from Katie Gallagher. She says, yep, you can get paid parental leave if you killed your baby. You just need someone to confirm that your baby's actually dead. You know, that there's no differentiation. And this is just so humiliating and mocking to women. You know, I think it's offensive to women who've had the tragedy of a natural stillbirth to be placed in the same category as women who are deliberately killing their healthy child and delivering them dead. Like, they're not the same thing, but Labor wants you to believe that it is. And it gets worse, because after Pauline asked these questions and got this into the spotlight, not that any of the mainstream media covered it, we then get Alex Antic a few weeks ago asking questions of Jenny McAllister, who's another government minister responsible for this area, asking her about this very issue. Let's watch.
If a woman, presumably not a person, that has an abortion after 20 weeks and up to birth, then she is eligible for that payment.
Senator, the government supports parents who lose a baby through stillbirth. The medical professional certifies that stillbirth.
So she says with a straight bat, knowing that Alex is asking about intentional late-term abortions, she just says the government supports parents who go through the tragedy of a stillbirth. They're not the same thing. Like, they're not the same thing. You've got one baby who has tragically died, got another baby who has been brutally killed. I mean, if we think about this in another way, because clearly the government is finding it pretty hard to understand that these are different things, let's think about this in a different way. The government gives Commonwealth bereavement payments. You know, if your sister has tragically died or your wife, you potentially can get a bereavement payment from the government to help with funeral expenses, to help with your grief, to give you a bit of time off work, just to help you through that period, right? But this would be like saying that if you're a husband and you bashed your wife to death, it's the same thing. You can get this bereavement payment because your wife has died. They're not the same thing. If you intentionally killed your own child, healthy child, late in pregnancy and deliberately delivered them dead, yes, they are technically a stillborn, and a medical professional is going to sign that form and say, yes, this was a stillbirth. That's what the government keeps saying. That's what you need. That's all you need. Well, yes, they're technically a stillbirth, but they are not the same as a baby who has tragically died. In the one case, they're murdered. In the other case, they've died of natural causes. It shouldn't be that hard to understand. Imagine if this was about domestic violence murders. Like if Alex was asking questions about that. Is it true that a husband who has killed his wife because of domestic violence is eligible for the Commonwealth bereavement payment? And the response from the government, from the minister, is, well, first we need someone to go check her body and confirm that she's actually dead. When I posted about Alex Antic's questions, Ava Michi, who's no friend of ours, she's not pro-life, and in fact that's what makes this more credible, the fact that she's actually pro-abortion. She writes, I had a late-term abortion due to medical reasons. It happens, and yes, you get the parental leave payment. But people are making out like it's just handed to you. It's not. It's a lengthy process to even get approved for a late-term abortion anyway. You need 2 doctors signed off, and it's very risky. A lot of things can go wrong, just like any other pregnancy. But this money isn't just handed out like they've made it out to be. So she's really got her knickers in a twist, because she's saying that we are making it sound like it's really easy to get this $22,000 for a late-term abortion. And she's saying, no. You know, it's actually really hard. I had to fill out a form and we're meant to be like, oh, my bad. Like we sorry. No. The point here is that this woman who had a medical abortion, an intentional late-term abortion, was able to access paid parental leave. That's the thing. No one's saying that you don't have to fill out some paperwork. Of course you do. It's $22,000. But the point is you can actually get it. You can actually get $22,000 for a late-term abortion. That's the headline. But to make this 100 times worse, and I guess you, if you're like me, would be thinking, how could it possibly get even worse? Well, the Albanese government is now introducing a new bill called Baby Priya's Bill. And it's to deal with the situation of a mother who has a stillbirth and who goes to her employer, and she was eligible for paid parental leave. She was going to take employer-funded paid parental leave, but then she's at a stillbirth and the employer says, no, sorry, you don't get paid parental leave. You've got to now come back to work. This is what happened to Priya's mum. Priya's mum was all set to take paid parental leave. Her baby tragically dies. Her very much wanted baby tragically dies. And then her employers say, no, you've got to come back to work. And so the Albanese government is saying, well, if you have a stillborn baby, well, then you can get employer-funded paid parental leave. You don't just get the government 22K, but you can now get topped up at your salary at the rate and time frame that you were expected to receive, from your employer. So, for example, I work at the University of Adelaide, and when I had my 5 babies, the first 2 I wasn't eligible for this, but the later 3 I were. And so I was eligible for government-funded paid parental leave, but I was also eligible for the university's own package, and their package is 6 months at full pay. Now, the key thing here, because the government includes intentional stillborns, intentional late-term abortions, as part of its definition for a stillbirth to be able to access this leave, there's no carve-out. So if you're on a professor's salary at the University of Adelaide, you're working full-time, you have an intentional late-term abortion, you're potentially eligible for $100,000, 6 months at full pay, paid parental leave for the baby that you've intentionally killed. So the Albanese government is actually forcing employers now to pay a cash payment late-term abortion bonus that fully dwarfs what the government's giving. They're giving $22,000. You can now make even more for an intentional late-term abortion. You don't even have the baby to look after because you've killed them. You don't have to go back to work and you get paid for it. So let's look at the bill, and it's being debated in Parliament this week in the House of Reps. So let's look at Division 7, Clause 33X of the bill. It says employer-funded paid parental leave is preserved if a child is stillborn or dies. And then it says Section 1 that this section applies if a child is stillborn or dies. And B, an employee would have been entitled to the leave under the terms and conditions of the employee's employment if the child had not been stillborn or died. So what's that saying is if you are pregnant and you are eligible for paid parental leave and you're all ready to take it, like baby Priya's mum was, but then your baby is stillborn, then this section applies. And then it says, C, that leave is paid for by the employee's employer and is associated with the birth of a child of the employee or the employee's spouse. So what this is saying essentially is if you have a stillborn baby, you are now eligible for paid parental leave funded by your employer, and your employer has to do it. Otherwise, they're not compliant with this section. Now, this is a bill amending the Fair Work Act. If employers don't comply with the Fair Work Act, there's civil penalty provisions in terms of fines. So it says here under this section, for the definition of a stillborn child, see subsection 77A2. Now, I hoped when I looked at subsection 77A2 that there would be a carve-out for intentional stillbirths, for late-term abortions. Given that abortion is legal up to birth in this country, I assume there'd be a carve-out for this, but there isn't. If you look at the definition, it's in the Fair Work Act, section 77A2, and it says a stillborn child is a child who weighs at least 400 grams at delivery or whose period of gestation was at least 20 weeks and who has not breathed since delivery and whose heart has not beaten since delivery. So this is the definition that a late-term abortion would meet. If you've injected your baby's heart with poison after 20 weeks, you then go into labour, you deliver that baby stillborn. They weigh over 400 grams, they're older than 20 weeks, they've not breathed because you've killed them, and their heart has not beaten because you stopped it. So make this make sense, guys. On the one hand, these are the same people who tell you this baby has no worth. They're a clump of cells, they're a parasite. They can be killed right up until birth. That, in fact, if you look at the South Australian Act on birth, deaths and marriages, it says, if a baby is born after 20 weeks, but they're the result of a termination, they're just a product of conception. That's how worthless they are. In South Australia, they can literally be chucked in the bin, a full-term baby that's been delivered dead. And yet these are the same people who are now saying that they're going to force employers to pay paid parental leave for this baby. So this baby, who in their worldview is not even a baby at all, they're not alive in their worldview, it's only after they take their first breath at delivery that they're alive. They're just a clump of cells. They're nothing. Suddenly, this baby is now worth over $100,000 if you're my baby, and I killed you. Make it make sense. It just exposes, and then now exposes how ridiculous this ideology is, this pro-abortion ideology is. They want to make it sound like it's the same as a stillborn who has tragically died. They want to make it the same, but there's a false equivalence. And now the danger of all of this is it's not just our taxpayer money that's being funding these late-term abortion payments of up to $22,000. They're actually forcing private employers to do this too. Section 321 of the bill makes it really clear. It says Division 7 is about preserving employer-funded paid parental leave if an employee's child is stillborn or dies. The employee's employer must not refuse to allow the employee to take that leave or cancel that leave without a request from the employee. So if you're a business owner and you have an employee who is 7 months pregnant and, she was intending to take paid parental leave, but she goes to an abortion clinic or a hospital and has that baby injected with poison and she delivers that baby stillborn, and the monster who did that signs her form to confirm that it's true that this baby was delivered stillborn, and they will sign that form because they did it, and it also just is true. So if they didn't sign the form, they'd be lying. If you're a business owner, that woman turns back up to you and she says, I've had an abortion, but I want my paid parental leave. And you actually have to pay her according to the terms of her contract to not work because she killed her baby. So for me, that's 6 months at full pay. For other workers, it'll be different depending on the business. But make no mistake, this is an ideologically driven pro-abortion Albanese government that is now pushing their ideology on private employers in this country who will become eligible for this. So of course, I'm trying to do something about this, and it has to happen on a number of levels. So the first thing that I'm trying is I've spoken to Pauline Hanson's people, and they're going to move an amendment to make a carve out so that this doesn't apply if the baby hasn't been intentionally killed. So we've been drafting something that says that an employer would not have to comply with baby Priya's bill if it's an intentional late-term abortion. Now, given the numbers in the parliament, I'm not optimistic about the chances of that amendment, but what I would ask in the next period, like immediately, because this is going through the parliament now, I need you guys to call your senator, because this is where this is going to happen, is in the Senate. If this is going to get amended, this will sail through the House of Representatives. The Liberals haven't opposed it. Everyone's, waxing lyrical about how tragic a stillbirth baby is. It is tragic, and I'm not dismissing that. This is not to criticise baby Priya's mum or anything like this. I imagine she never even imagined that her bill could be used in this way. So that's not to criticise any of that, but this bill will sail through the House of Reps. The only hope we've got is it gets amended in the Senate. And so I need you to call your senators to tell them what's going on and to say you want them to vote for Pauline's amendment to carve out late-term abortions so that employers don't have to pay for them, because that would just be insane. But then the next thing I need you guys to do is to sign our petition. I think it's got about 60,000, but really, we really, as I keep telling you, this needs to be over 100,000, or we're not going to, we're just not going to be able to change this, because ultimately we want an amendment to this bill, and we want the government-funded paid parental leave to not be eligible for late-term abortions. It just shouldn't be. I mean, why do we need it? The baby's dead. You killed the baby. Like, why are we paying women to be at home with their dead baby? Like, they're not at home with their dead baby. Their dead baby's in the bin, or buried in some unmarked plot, or they've been cremated, they've been burned. We shouldn't be paying for this. So all of this to say, this is a horrifying situation to be in, but it is the reality. And so, what I really need you guys to do is I need you to share this video. I need you to send it to people, because ultimately, if we don't speak up, this continues to happen and gets worse and worse. Like, when we first broke this story, I don't think either of us thought this could get worse, but it has, and we're here. And who knows where we get to next. So thank you for watching. That's today on The Dr. Jo Show.